Hi everyone, welcome back to Things Lucy Reads. I'm Luce and this is another wrap-up video. In this video I am going to be talking about books number 47, number 50, number 53, number 56 and number 59 that I read this year. I'm going to start with number 56. Before I forget about it, the book was Seriously I'm Kidding by Ellen DeGeneres, which I can't show you because I don't have it anymore because I gave it to a friend. I only rated this book 2 out of 5 stars. It's the second book of Ellen's that I've read, and I think it's going to be the last because I haven't really liked either of them. Ellen's books are totally uncategorizable. They're not really biographies. It's not a story. There's no linear narrative of any kind. It's essentially like reading a stream of consciousness conversation that you might have with her. Like if you sat down and she was telling you random things about her life or that she thought or whatever, that would be what the book is. And I feel like in order to really appreciate it, you have to be a diehard Ellen fan, and I'm not. So yeah, I don't really have very much to say about it apart from that. And I wouldn't recommend it unless you love Ellen more than life, because it's just not worth it. The next book I'm going to talk about is number 47, and that was Come Close by Sappho, which is a Penguin Little Black classic, and it's just some of her poems. I really loved this. I gave it 4 stars. I'm so sad that it's so short and that we don't have a lot of Sappho's poetry to begin with, because it's beautiful. And I think I'm going to buy another book of her poetry with like everything that has survived, because it was just so good and I loved it a lot. Okay, the next book I read is number 50, and it was a 5-star read, which was extremely surprising even to myself. The book is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. I went into this with a lot of apprehensions. People obviously compared it unfavorably to Harry Potter, and they said that since it's meant to be the 7th book in the series, it was hard to follow because there's all this stuff that you're supposed to know about but you don't. I disagree with that actually, but we will come back to that. Anyway, so I went into this not liking it. Even to the extent that when it popped up as a Read Now title on NetGalley, I read that instead of reading the copy that I had actually bought, because I thought that if I didn't like it, then I would just return this to the shop, and I didn't want it to get accidentally damaged while I was reading it and make me unable to do that. So I read it mostly as a book for NetGalley. But I ended up really enjoying this. I have a very long and complicated history with Harry Potter. When I was a kid, I loved it. I've read the first 4 books 4 times. I've read Order of the Phoenix twice, but I've only read 6 and 7 once each, and I didn't finish the Deathly Hallows until just before part 2 of the movie came out. So it went from being something that I absolutely loved to being something that I was kind of tired of. And even now, I'm sick to death of hearing about fucking J.K. Rowling and all of the things that she's changed her mind about in the series. Oh, Seamus and Dean were going to go to the Yule Ball together, but I didn't make that happen because I thought it would distract too much from the main trio. Excuse me? Oh, it's so great that people think Hermione was black. Her race is never ever mentioned in any of the books, so you can absolutely read her that way. Great. Why didn't you write her that way? Why didn't you just do it? Why didn't you just do all of this from the start? And I'm just so tired of her claiming brownie points for being the most basic, decent human being ever. And people act like she's the queen of Twitter and the queen of internet and the queen of diversity. Newsflash. She's not. She's not, okay? No. And as I got older, as I realized that I'm not in fact straight as previously thought, and it occurred to me that there were 0 characters like me in Harry Potter, I just became more and more disillusioned with it, to the point where now I am afraid to reread the books because I honestly don't know if I'm going to like them still. That's where I'm at with Harry Potter. No, it's not inclusive for me. I'm not in it. People like me are not in that book, and I just am really upset about that. And it's probably irrational, but I don't give a shit, because I want to see myself in the books that I love, and most of the time I don't. And for J.K. Rowling to pretend like that she's some savior of diversity and queen of including all people in her books when she's the complete opposite is just so fucking hypocritical, and I just can't even with that. Anyway, that was where I am at with Harry Potter, and when people were comparing it unfavorably to Harry Potter, I started off thinking, oh god, I'm not a huge fan of that anymore, maybe I won't like this. But then I remembered that the same thing happened with Half Bad, and I loved Half Bad, and I also loved this. So if something's compared unfavorably to Harry Potter, chances are I'm gonna like it more than I ever liked Harry Potter. Okay, so the book is about Simon Snow, who is like a Harry Potter-like person. He was first introduced to us as a character in a book series in the book Fangirl. This is not, even though it has the same name, this is not the fanfiction that Kath wrote. It's not even the actual book from the series from Fangirl. It's what Rainbow Rowell would have done with the series if she had been writing it from the start, which, I mean, she kind of was. But anyway, that's what it is. It's about Simon Snow, who is like the chosen one, the one who is going to save magic, and his roommate Baz, who is like the equivalent to Draco Malfoy. He is Simon's roommate, and they hate each other, and Simon has spent his entire school career trying to prove that Baz is a vampire, to no avail so far, and they just hate each other. Except when Simon shows up at school this year, Baz is gone, and no one knows where he is. And Simon can't even celebrate that fact because he's too busy worrying about where Baz is, and maybe he's not safe, etc., etc. Baz is totally fucking in love with Simon Snow, and it's glorious. I loved that so much. We see part of the book from his perspective and finding out what has happened to him and why, and it was so good. So the things in the magical world are kind of coming to the big climax. The person that they're fighting against is called the Insidious Humdrum. At the end of their previous year at school, Penelope and Simon found out that the Insidious Humdrum has Simon's face from when he was 11 years old. And so they're just trying to figure out what the Humdrum is, how he's doing what he's doing, which is stealing magic from certain spots in the world, and once it's gone from there, you can't get it back. There's like a finite amount of magic in the world, and so he's taking it, and they can't replace it. It's gone forever. So they're trying to figure out what that is happening. All the while, Simon is also trying to figure out what has happened to Baz, why he hasn't come back to school. He's trying to navigate the remnants of his relationship with Agatha, who was his girlfriend, but then they like kind of broke up, or I don't think they broke up like officially, it just kind of happened to happen that way. Simon thinks that Agatha is cheating on him with Baz, and so that's a whole big saga. There's a lot going on. It was all of the things I loved about Harry Potter and none of the things that I didn't, and I can't even really express how I feel because it just got me right in the heart, right there in the left ventricle, and yeah, I just loved it. I thought that it was not too hard to follow, even though it is meant to be the last book in a series. All of the information that we need to understand references made to their previous school years, we are given. So I didn't feel like I needed to read 7 other books in this series to get the full story. I feel like I got all that I needed out of this one, and this is enough, and I don't need any more. A lot of people read Simon Snow as bisexual. Personally, I don't. The relationship that he had with Agatha felt very much like something that happened because they both thought that it should. Not necessarily because they wanted it, but just because they thought that it should. And that's something that I can really relate to. I never questioned my sexuality until I was in university and I kind of had a girlfriend, because it had never occurred to me to. Like, I'd never had a boyfriend before then either, but it just wasn't something that I did until I did it. And up until then, I said that I was straight and would flirt with boys and stuff like that. And yeah, so I kind of saw myself a lot in Simon, and I wouldn't call him bisexual because I don't call myself bisexual because I wasn't straight. I thought that I was, but I wasn't. You know. Anyway, bottom line is I loved this book. And I I don't even have anything bad to say about this because I just loved everything about it. Actually, no, that's a lie. I could have done without all of the ellipses, the ... constantly. I could have done without that. Other than that, loved it. It was great. Definitely recommend, especially if you're completely done with Harry Potter the way that I am. This is your book. The last book that I'm going to talk about is The Uncommon Reader by Alan Bennett. This is a book about what would happen if the Queen discovered a joy of reading. She stumbles across this mobile library that pulls up in the grounds of Windsor Castle and borrows a book in order to be polite, since the corgis have, you know, been barking at the door and generally being a disturbance. She borrows a book and tries to read it, but doesn't really enjoy it that much. And then kind of borrows another book and reads that and enjoys that a little bit more. And the more books she reads, the more she likes it, and she hires this one guy specifically to be like her master of the books or whatever, and his job is to secure books for her to read that she might enjoy. And what happens is that the Queen loves reading so much that her official duties suffer, and all she wants to do is read, and she finds all of the things that she has to do to be kind of boring now because it doesn't involve her reading. And it was just really, really delightful and really cute. Quite similar to Mrs. Queen Takes the Train, which I absolutely loved. Yeah, I gave this 5 stars. It was just so, so delightful. I loved it a lot. Okay, so those are all the books I'm going to talk about in this video. Let me know if you've read any of these and what you thought. And I will see you in my next one. Bye, everyone.